Hey there everyone. So I decided not to hide under my hat tonight because my hair's, I kind of like how it's laying flat for once. So I just came back from my Taekwondo class. So I just signed up for like just a 2-week trial to see if I like training with the instructor. And so the Taekwondo class I'm talking about, it's like the same system I got my black belt in when I was in high school. And so I've been talking about things happening in my timeline. I've been kind of hovering around, the year I was 18. Well, I think that's about the last time I trained there. I got my second black, and this other instructor from Miami came down and bought the place, and he didn't want me to be an instructor because I came to class looking like a punk too many times. And at the same time, I was going to Ron's house to train the Kempo Wushu system, and Ron was cool because I could go to his house and smoke pot and train Kempo. So at the time, I thought I didn't need the Taekwondo anymore. I have Ron, who was willing to, he was willing to train me up to black belt and make me an instructor because he liked me and thought I could do it. So, but I didn't go with Ron. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit at another time. And but just because I came back from class, I just want to share. I haven't been able to find anything to wear for a uniform. I've turned into such a fat old black belt. I actually had to go to class just wearing regular street clothes that fit loosely, and so I thought I'd share quickly what I got on. So I have a few other playlists I created, like the Fat Old Black Belt. I try to talk more about martial arts on there. A huge long playlist of just me playing with my ducky Easter. Actually, he's a goose. And then see, I did a couple of things just to compartmentalize my conversations. Like, so the JodyVision is where I get to talk about the weirdness in my life. So that's the one where I'm going to add this video. And then I'm trying to work on one, just my life, my pictures, just trying to talk about my life without the vision part, like what's really happening in my life. So I'm going to try doing one of those next, because I'm just bringing it to the end of when I was living in the Florida Keys. And then the very next thing is when I moved to Denver. So I was going to tell you what I had on for my class. So I went to 2 classes, and tonight I call this my I call it my backwoods karate gi because it's a flannel. But I like this flannel. It's kind of I don't know how to express it, but I get really good pop out of it. So when you do Taekwondo, you kind of want to hear your uniform pop. It helps you to tell if you're getting good snap and power. And then my jeans also have good snap and power. I'm not going to demonstrate it, but just for fun, this is my black belt when I was first degree. They try to like write your name, like they sound it out, so that's how they sound out your name in Korean. And now I'm in mirror vision, so it's backwards. Like my shirt, you might notice this is my Huckland shirt. Actually, this was my work shirt from working at a Hungry Horse. This is my belt rank when I was a first degree. I'm actually a 2nd degree black belt recommended in Taekwondo, but I need to test again to be a decided. Then you're like a permanent black belt. I don't know, like if they could like take it away if you fail to be a good black belt. I don't know what that means, but I thought, hey, maybe I'll work on that when I come back. So anyways, the funny thing about, say signing up for this Taekwondo class is here I've been reflecting on my life like 30 years ago, and about 30 years ago is when I dropped out of Taekwondo to go train with Ron, and so I was kind of reflecting on some of the stuff that happened around that time. So and I was about that age of 18, because I knew it was like during summer, and I hadn't started school yet. That's how I like remember things. Like I didn't write it all down. Really, I'm just telling stuff out of my memory. Like the only time I've ever really written it down is I've actually tried to write to Bill Leave and tell him about it. So he's probably the only person that has anything in writing, which is kind of embarrassing because I think he even kept it. Might still have that. Anyways, unless his girlfriend kept it, his ex-girlfriend. Anyways, that's another story in itself. But I've been doing my best to just sort of remember it, and so I take a little bit of time to reflect on what I'm going to tell you next, because sometimes I forget things that are important that kind of help things tie in. So I'm trying to get this to move along a little faster, because it's taking a lot longer than I expected to. I really thought I'd be done by now. I thought I'd be out of this house and on to the next thing. So I'm really surprised I'm still stuck here. But me going back to that Taekwondo class is because I'm trying to get back in shape. and it's something I'm familiar with, but they've changed the class quite a bit, so it's kind of interesting how they've made everything different. So I want to talk about that a little bit later in a video specifically for that, but I really wanted to share that because me going back to Taekwondo was like totally going full circle, and at the same time I've been just like right there in my story about when I was 18 going on 19 and this was what's happening, and that's when I met Milan, and that's when Milan started bringing up his friend from Austria named Baldus, and it sounded like he was describing someone like Bill Lieb when I think about it, you know, and I didn't catch on like right at the moment, but so I'm not sure if like that like triggered any of my memory or not, but I think around a little later on, because my friend Janet, I mentioned I had a friend Janet who I met in 11th grade, and we made friends over music, and she kind of showed me a part of the music scene that I wasn't as familiar with. Like my dad was pretty picky, and he didn't listen to stuff like, you know, Depeche Mode and the Smiths and all that. But it was kind of interesting, you know, like I like live in the Florida Keys. We lived near a Navy base, so I'd meet people from all over the country, sometimes different parts of the world. And then Milan came to live in Key West just because his dad lived there. But he was from Croatia, and he could speak good enough English to communicate, so we talked about stuff. But it's funny, he brought up this friend that sounded like someone that could be Billy, and so I thought later on, like, oh my God, I remember him telling me about that, you know. And then, but then I got my friend Janet on the phone. She'd gone back to where she came from, so she came out to Key West to live at her dad's, and went back to all these people I know have parents who have split up, but me, right? Yeah. But mine probably should have. But anyways, Janet went back to her mom's, and I'd stay in touch with her, and I remember calling her up one day and telling her, you know, that I think I know Bill Lieb from somewhere, and I might have known him when I was a kid, but you know, he was close to my age when I was a kid, and now that I've rediscovered him, he seems a lot older, so I'm not really sure if he's the same person, but he could be. So I was probably thinking about it and brought it up to Janet, and she said, you know, well, why don't you just call him? I'm like, no, Janet, I can't just call him, you know. It's like, well, why not? He's not that famous. You should just look him up and see if you can find him, you know, maybe just call information and get his phone number. And so she actually talked me into trying to get his phone number. And so I did. I actually tried to call information to get Bill Lieb's phone number. And they didn't have one for him because I knew he lived in Vancouver, so I was trying to find out if there's a Bill Lieb in Vancouver. And I think they had like a Eric and a Rainer, and I don't know what else they had, but I thought, well, let's go with Eric, you know. So I had him give me Eric Lieb's number, and I called that one. And the person I answered the phone, in hindsight, could have been Bill. Or somebody that just talks a lot like him, but I didn't know at the time what Bill talks like, you know. I wouldn't know his voice. Like, it's kind of hard to recognize his voice even now, but I kind of know a little bit better, but I know his singing voice. But that changes a lot too, because he uses the vocoder and the voice processor and all that stuff, so like, you know, he's a real character, let me tell you what. Anyways, by the way, yeah, where was I at with Bill Lieb and trying to find him? And anyways, I was at the point where, okay, I tried to call that number, and the guy, I asked if Bill Lieb was there, and he said no, but may I ask who's calling? So he didn't say I had the wrong number, he just said he's not there, and he wanted to know who was calling, you know. So I told him my name's Jody, and I think I told him I'm an old friend of Bill's. So I think I'm an old friend of his. No, I think I told him I'm an old friend of his for sure. Like, I had it in my head. That's just like my story. I just wanted him to have a good answer. I just told him I'm an old friend of his. So, I don't remember how much we talked. I think it was real quick and just, okay, let him know I called, you know. And then sometime later, so my dad had another friend. Okay, we knew a guy from Michigan named Kelly that moved out to Denver, and so he would always call up after my dad went to bed. My dad used to try to get in bed by like 10 to make sure he could get up on time for work and be to work, you know, on time. So he was pretty good about stuff like that, you know. But Kelly'd always miss him because like they were living 2 hours in the past, right? We're living in Florida, they're in Denver. And so, like, you know, I just thought it was Kelly calling, and I loved it when Kelly called up, because then, like, I could talk about getting in the music business and what I'm trying to do and stuff, and just talked to Kelly. Was just felt like Kelly was like an adopted uncle to me, you know. So I just loved when he called up and I could talk to him, and he was always nice and helpful. And he'd be like, you know something, Jody, I really like the way you think, you know. So Kelly made me feel good. And you know, my dad had a number of friends, you know, like that listened to industrial music and stuff, and they always thought I was a cool kid, you know. So that's kind of where, like, you know, later on when I moved to Denver, I was kind of disappointed because, you know, my dad's friends thought I was cool, but like all these other people have treated me like an imposter. Like, what are you doing in our club? But then I realized, oh, okay, I'm like that movie, The Blade, you know, like the daywalker going in there with those vampires. Like, that's why they don't want me. At any rate, you know, trying to get a hold of Bill Lieb, and he might have called me back, but I'm not sure. I could never verify this. So this is one of those weird little fan stories, I guess, like where you're wondering if I'm, you know, if I really got through to him or not. And it's like, there's a good possibility I might have got through to him, but again, you know, with all these visionary slips, it's one of those things where I can't be too sure, so it's kind of frustrating. You know, there's a lot of stuff like that along the way where it's frustrating because I can't really find out if it really happened or not. So a lot of things I have been able to, you know, verify, you know, with the people I've seen or talked to my visions, and they're able to verify if it happened or not. And that's usually how I figure it out. So at any rate, the person called me up, and I was thinking they were Kelly, might have been Bill Lieb, and so I just sat there and talked to him like I thought it was Kelly. And I started telling him, you know, that I think I knew Bill Lieb from somewhere, and so I'm thinking about trying to get a hold of Frontline Assembly and seeing if I can maybe join their band or something, or see if I could help them. I really love those guys, and I really want to help them. And then I was starting to talk about stuff like, you know, when I listen to my dad talk about when he was growing up and all the cool stuff that's going on, it just makes me kind of sad, and I just want to cry because I feel like I've missed everything. You know, I still feel like that. I feel like I missed everything. Being isolated in the Florida Keys, you know, I wasn't in the thick of things, but so I was always hoping, you know, to go to Denver and discover all that myself. Of course, so I was kind of going over that, and since I thought I was talking to Kelly, and I was like, you know, I asked him like about moving to Denver, like, you know, if he would mind helping me move to Denver, you know, if it's going to be easy enough to find work and find jobs. And he's like, yeah, sure, yeah, you know, sure, it sure is, you know. And sounded like he didn't talk very much. It's like he let me do most of the talking, so he didn't really interject very often. But I'm trying to remember like if there's anything specific, but it's just kind of cool. Like, what if I was talking to Billy and I was telling him all this stuff, like, oh yeah, I really want to, you know, join Frontline Assembly. I like really love these guys. And I really want to help them, and didn't know it, right? So that's the irony there. Is I'm not really sure, but that's just one of those things. Because right at the end of the conversation, he's like, "I love you, Jody," and when he said that, now Kelly might say something like that, and so I was like, okay, yeah, all right, you know, I didn't think nothing of it. But after I hung up the phone, I just felt like, you know, that guy's voice seemed really different. Like, that might not have been Kelly. Like, all at once, I was like, oh my God, what if that wasn't Kelly, you know? And so that's kind of the funny thing about that is later on in life, when I went to Denver, Kelly actually, he kind of what you call dropped out. He got sick of the industrial music scene, and he also moved away. And so I really felt alone. I was like, shit, Kelly's all gone. I was kind of depending on him to be kind of my big brother while I was out there, or kind of like my adopted uncle or whatever, and be an older person or a friend I could go to, and that guy moved away. Oh, it was kind of scary for me. But anyway, so I was saying about, you know, Bill and Kelly is like, I was going out to Denver to try to learn from Kelly, and in a roundabout way, I ended up wanting to learn from Bill, so it'd be kind of funny that I got those two confused. But difference between Bill and Kelly is I think Bill's always had like that industrial music spirit. Maybe he understands it in a different way. I really feel like he got it and he went with it, you know, that type of thing. But it's kind of a funny thing to reflect on, you know, to think that I tried to get a hold of Bill, and then later on in life, after I moved here to Montana, somebody kind of gave me his number. I don't know if they were supposed to, or like, I don't know how to explain that, but that's another story in itself as well. And so when I saw the number, I recognized it. I'm like, I think that's the right number, you know, because there was like a little joke over it, and it didn't really say his name on it, and And so I was telling my good friend Rosie that I was staying with that, I think I'm supposed to, I think she's trying to give me his number, and she's like, well, go on ahead and call it. And it's the correct number, so I'm not going to give that information away, but like, it's a number that, when people, give Bill Lieb a call to do interviews, that's probably the number they get. And I think that, stuff like that. So it's like probably his business number. So I'm not sure, like, if that's why he's been using it. Like, if that's the same number he's had since '95, or I just had a visionary slip. And if there was only a visionary slip, then it's kind of prophetic, because I feel like that number was very familiar to me for some reason. And so there's something to that. And that's I kind of think that's one of the last things that happened, vision wise, or like, where I'm kind of wondering if that was a visionary slip or not. Because, like, I've mentioned it to Bill in my letters, or when I was in touch on Facebook, I tried to ask him, I tried to verify some of these stuff, and he just sort of blows it off, like he doesn't really answer me. But then I tell him a funny joke, and then be like, oh man, that was pretty funny. Like, so, like, it's kind of like, no answer doesn't mean no necessarily. I mean, maybe he can't really tell me yes or no because he can't remember, or maybe it never happened and he's just blowing me off. So that's the difficult thing, is that most of the time when I see people in my visions, if I know them, I could ask them. But Bill's always been kind of off limits. Even when I'm able to write or text him, he still don't answer my goddamn questions. So then I'm still to this day wondering if I really got a hold of him or not. Because the important part of that conversation was at the very end, when he said, I love you, Jody. I really appreciate that if you told me that in reality. Of course, that would amount to something. So, yeah. So anyways, I wanted to share that last bit before I go on to what happened next in Denver. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a fun night. Unless it's daytime, then have a good day. Ha!